Hello, I'm Sora Lexon, and this is lesson 26. Clarifications. I need to make some clarifications to lesson 25. To begin, quickly revisiting lesson 25, as there have been responses, generally highly polarized responses, which I was expecting, specifically to my assertion that for the most part, actual so called black magicians, that is, magicians claiming to teach black magics either for a fee or for free, usually on the internet in order to get you to buy a book or something along those lines. This apparently is a subject some people have very strong opinions about. And those opinions that they're carrying and burdening themselves with are opinions they don't know how to discuss rationally in a civilized manner a majority of the time, much like religion and politics, unfortunately. So I've received a lot of pushback, and I'm going to make some clarifications. I'll start by saying when I mentioned people don't generally have private conversations with demons or angels and then talk about them, to say that I'm denying the possibility of that is to take my words heavily out of context. What I was saying, allow me to clarify, is that generally, as a rule, I'm not saying people don't have those conversations. I'm saying when they do, they don't tend to share them in public. If you were to have a conversation with, say, Metatron, you're going to have access to source material that is going to be highly privatized, personalized to you. This is going to be information that could make you very vulnerable. So going out in public and talking about your very private experience that you've had, whether with a demon or an angel, and these incredible, valuable insights that you've garnered, you're probably not going to take that very intimate information and walk outside and then discuss it with a group of 15 strangers that you've never met. Now, maybe you might. I'm not saying it's always the case. I'm just saying a majority of the time. A majority of the time, someone that's experienced something like this isn't going to do that. Because it would be much like going out and discussing with 15 strangers the most intimate and vulnerable ways you can be touched or feel during the most privatized sexual acts, for instance. You're probably not going to go share that with a crowd of people you haven't met before. It makes you very vulnerable, and it's highly specific information to you. So there's one clarification. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying people don't have those conversations with those entities. I'm saying generally, as a rule, they don't share them in a public manner. It's very intimate and it's very personal information. Also, if someone's going out there and saying, hey, I had a conversation with Metatron, he told me to give you this message. Generally, again, I'm not saying it's always the case, but generally, common sense would say if Metatron had given that person a message to spread to the masses, Metatron also probably would have given them the common sense approach of not dropping his name. Because Metatron would know better than anyone that if you want to get a message across, using the word Metatron and saying Metatron told me so is going to automatically turn off 50% or more of every possible listener, right? Everyone's going to tune out, think you're crazy, not want to listen, not going to understand or appreciate how you're choosing to approach the subject material. So if the best communicator really wanted his higher plane message spread to the masses, it's going to be given to an individual, likely, that is also being trained how to do that and do that well, to be amicable, to approach things from a clear and concise and wholly decent and approachable point of view, and probably not to name drop very often. I'm not saying, again, that that's always the case, but generally, if someone's saying that's what they're doing, chances are that's not what's actually going on. Also, when I was talking about people trying to sell you things via their magical claims, I am not in any way undermining people who are doing actual research or work, people who are gathering or garnering information and then taking the time and personal energy to then package it into a means that's palatable to someone they're selling it to. I'm not saying that. If people are working, they deserve to be paid for their work. And it's entirely up to you. There is a lot of information out there. And if you're choosing willfully that you want access to that information and have to pay a certain amount for it, then that choice is yours. I buy books. Occultists have huge libraries. You should see the size of my library, right? I'm not saying that everyone out there claiming to be magical and then selling you a book on the subject is trying to rip you off. What I am saying is that there are some people out there that will make claims in order to market things to you where the material you're going to get in exchange isn't worthy of the price you've paid for it. That does happen, and it's something to be aware of. So now that I've clarified that point as well, when it comes to black magics, my perspective on this subject, which comes from experience of my own work within the craft, and many wonderful insights from those high and low magic users whom I respect most within their specialized arenas, who don't share the exact same background as myself as occultists, is that there is no white or black magic. I want to be very clear on this. So all I may do is repeat what I've already said in response to a lot of these comments that I've gotten. Magic's intention and influences are the purview of the user. The word magic in this instance, itself referring explicitly to the energies being manipulated, sometimes referred to as Luke's energy and high occultic magical practices, the sort of magi or priesthood initiate of the Enochian traditions or ancient mystery schools, such as myself works with. Sometimes it's called life energy or spirit energy. In certain Wiccan groups, respectively, I've heard certain neo-pagans refer to it as mana. It has a lot of different words and labels. Simply referred to as power, flat out, by chaos magicians or alchemical practitioners that are just trying to be very straightforward and direct in how they speak about it. From all of the many traditions I haven't yet mentioned, that power doesn't heed a right or left direction as a power before you take it and start working with it. Whether or not you do, whether or not you heed a right or left direction and define yourself as such, doesn't change what the power is or how it functions. Magical energy doesn't have to describe itself as light or dark. That is a definition placed onto it by an individual's perception of its uses. There is no magic that can be done which can be perceived strictly as falling within a label of good or evil. It may be used in a helpful or harmful way, that's true, and very often when trying to accomplish one, a person might often errantly accomplish the other. But even if you are, say, one of these supposed black magicians trying to use what you call black magic to cause harm, there are going to be instances when your harmful action that you've intended and undertaken has a good effect or creates a good effect somewhere else in the short term. There's going to be instance where you make that mistake or your magic doesn't work perfectly, and the good it does is going to outweigh the harm it's caused. If you're a person seeking to justify that black magic versus light magic exists because black magical power is drawn from some bad or evil source, again, let me caution you to be wary of such claims, whether you've heard them somewhere else and are then taking them on and passing them along as your own doctrine, or whether you're thinking that there is some difference here. You need to be very mindful and very clear on what you're doing and how you're doing it, especially when you're working with powers that can be trying to influence you in certain ways. So let me caution you to be very wary of such claims, both out loud and in your own mind, before validating them for yourself. Those with experience in the great art are going to scoff at amateurish comments such as this, that black magic is black because it comes from an evil source. Any alchemist is going to turn up the corners of their mouth a little bit at that comment, because what you label as dark sources can be controlled and used to wonderful effects. And what you label as light or good sources can be harnessed and employed to take massive, terrible action. Both can be worked with to either supposedly good or supposedly bad ends. The consequence of magical actions and how the individual decides to box that consequence into a specified characterization for their own mental purposes has nothing to do with the power itself. Anyone advanced in magical practices is going to know that. There is a source. Magic stems from that source and moves in larger or smaller amounts, filtering through all sorts of beings, fields, planes, consciousnesses. How you choose to identify one of those beings with magical power doesn't change the power itself. It's the same energy in you. And as you yourself know, you are free to use your energy to good or bad ends. Bad people do good things, for instance, and good people do bad things from time to time. You have to be rational. Both have to breathe and function with the same oxygen in their lungs, right? Good and bad people breathe the same air. They're using that same power source. Magic isn't good or bad, light or dark, negative or positive, any more than oxygen is good or bad within the individual. Be slow to apply such labels to things. Evil is all too often a generalization for something that, in fear, is not being understood. And good, all too often, refers to a thing perceiving itself as somehow righteously beyond reproach or superior. And going around labeling things as black magic is likely going to have a detrimental effect on you, because what you're actually doing is in your own mental capacity telling something that it has some sort of power over you or greater influence over you, and you're recognizing it as such. So be slow to label with such common stamps. You are the greatest power and influence over you. Be slow to judge with such broad strokes. And again, for my part, personally, passing my experience on to you for whatever it may or may not be worth, magic isn't black or white. Magic simply is. How we use it determines its effects on us and those around us. Claiming there is white or black magic would be like me saying, I'm a white magic user who has never done any bad black magic because I've never in my entire life of working the great craft made a mistake. Nope, not once, not ever have I accidentally done something I didn't specifically intend to. I've never made an error or a mistake or learned from it. Never once. I only do light or white magic. Never once has black magic touched me or have I done it. A mistake would be black magic. And I'm perfect. I'm so perfect that I don't ever make mistakes. That's why I'm a white magic user. Ever. Black magic, I've never touched the stuff. See how ridiculous that sounds? Also, briefly to put it in the most obvious terms, and again, to clarify what I spoke of previously, if those individuals claiming to be strictly black magicians, they can choose to define themselves that way, and if they're not harming others or trying to gain authority or respect from others in doing so, such is their journey, right? But if they are, these people claiming to be strictly black magicians, if they were actually what they claim they were, if they were these massively powerful, perfected, can have whatever they want at no consequence or energetic expense, who've gained hidden secrets that give them these massive powers, whose lives and abilities and invisible supernatural skills are so awe-inspiring, perfect, wonderful. Everything about them is to be envied and sought after, whatever. If that were actually the case, based on how these so-called black magic users define themselves as wanting and seeking power and being very good at that specified skill set, how interested would they be in then sharing that power with you? Or in leveling the playing field by teaching you their highly specialized, unique, supposedly incredibly hard-won methods that only they have? Why would they share power instead of hoarding it if what they supposedly want is power? Why teach you, train you, help you out, share their supposed knowledge with you, tell you how to get rich or manipulate others, how to make yourself the most powerful, when as they self-profess their own goal that they have so much background and information in is how to get rich, manipulate others, and gain power for themselves. So common sense would say here that if they are what they say they are, they wouldn't be talking about it or teaching it. And if they are talking about it or teaching it, they probably aren't what they're saying they are. Now, that isn't to say that everyone out there wearing counterculture clothing or covered in tattoos and piercings or aggressively working with less meditative, more chaos type magic isn't an authentic practitioner of occultism or doesn't have great insight that they could express to you that you could gain from, or that they can't possibly have interpretation into the mysteries of the universe that no one might have the exact same knowledgeable interpretation of. They can, the same way someone who wears tie-dye or a tie to work can. The closest thing, though, there is to a black magician or someone who's working with only black magic. And no, again, they can't really ever be, because they're going to be functioning in some way if they're alive, and they're going to accidentally be doing good or positive things, or doing things that could be described that way by someone else's perspective here and there along the way. Anyway, the closest to what could be defined as a black magician, these individuals are not who you would expect them to be. Most quote-unquote bad people, I know I say that quote-unquote a lot, but bad is a relative term, but most of these bad people are just people making bad choices. Sometimes a lot of bad choices, but still, they're just people, neither wholly good or wholly bad. The few, the ones with real interest and focus, whose goal is to willfully subjugate, to willfully spread ignorance at the highest occultic level, they themselves willfully spreading ignorance that they don't believe in or hold in order to dominate other minds or persuade those minds into a normalcy of a common laziness, of a need not to think, drifting. The ones with the most experience in how to do this to others and to have it work to the greatest effect, who are the best at that chosen path, they do not announce themselves for being what they are. Never. You would not ever recognize from looking at them who they are. And they have absolutely no interest in helping anyone else gain access to power or any sort of hidden secret. Because that power or those hidden teachings would free you from their control. In my experience within the occult, these are incredibly rare individuals, and they don't reveal themselves. and they certainly aren't revealing themselves on YouTube. That is something to bear in mind. I knew that there was going to be some pushback from Lesson 25. I knew that it would trigger a lot of people. Start depolarizing, right? Start stepping away from some of these broad terms and labels that you have automatic reactions to. We all have them. We're all in our different place along our journey. But black and white magic, thinking of magic in terms like that, is never going to serve you as well as a more holistic understanding of magic will serve you. And why not do what's going to serve you best? I knew that there would be responses to Lesson 25 as soon as I took the route of denying a separation existed within high occultic magics. But my position remains the same. And if you disagree with me, right, if you can't become unpolarized, that's fine. I mean, I'm not seeking you out, arguing with you how right I am, right? I'm not polarized. And if you are, that's okay. This isn't a subject I can be polarized on. People do bad stuff and good stuff. Magic can be used well or poorly. Energy itself doesn't break down into two conveniently discrete units for us to label. Magic is magic. Magic is very real, but it is neither light or dark. If you feel the need to forcefully maintain a polarized opinion, either agreeing or disagreeing with that statement, such is your choice, and you're free to make it. I'm grateful you have that freedom. We are each of us on our own path. How we travel it doesn't need to be the same. It isn't supposed to be. And there is such a thing as a philosophical difference of perception or a philosophical difference of opinion, just in how we define things and then seek to communicate those things with each other. Such differences are the facets by which we truly can gain from each other, learn from each other, improve our own powers. In closing, though, to add another tool to the belts of the practitioners that do come to my little YouTube podcast seeking methods and skills they might not have come across elsewhere yet, right? Those people who are capable of stepping back from the lever, or at least beginning to, because it's a long process. It's a process, right? Not an end goal, not a determined point. Those people who can step back from the seesaw and perceive themselves as the fulcrum. It never hurts to apply the great try it for yourself method. This is what I would suggest. If someone or something is claiming to be something or some way, and you're not sure for yourself, give it a go. Don't waste a ton of time or money on it. Obviously, don't invest more resource energetically than you wish to invest. Be mindful of that. But the best way to find out for yourself if something is real or not is to actually attempt to do it yourself. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. That isn't to say someone else can't, but at least now you know that you can't, right? And if you can, now you know that it's valid. This is the don't knock it until you try it or write it school of thought, right? If you don't know something and someone else says they do, go to the source of whatever it is and give it a chance. Find out for yourself. Then you'll definitely know for yourself, for better or worse, right? You're going to find out if something is real or not, if you attempt it. If someone's saying, however, that only they can do something and you can't, that they're the only means to whatever source material, whatever method, that you have to pass through them or go through them, thereby cutting you off at the pass from exploring the nature of things for yourself or seeking a broader interpretation of what the larger message may be. That's a big, big warning that that person or that method or message or technique is withholding relevant information from you. Always be prepared to challenge the expertise of anyone who doesn't want you to think for yourself. Always. Genuine occultists value those who think for themselves. It's like that Einstein quote, unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. If occultism is the hidden mysteries of truth seeking, then unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of that. That's the enemy of occultism, the enemy of magic. So go look for yourself. Go and see. And last but not least, for the person who requested an instructional video on the technique of geomancy, it's been almost 2 weeks ago now. I did read your message. I did get it. And I know that you wanted specifics from my own traditional Enochian ceremonial occultic background and how to go about doing that. That will be the very next video I do for you. I commit myself to that, right? I will do a tutorial on that next time. Until next time.